What can you say about your experiences thus far in this industry?
Um, it's funny. I was actually just talking to Wavi yesterday. He's got a super talented artist, Xavier, who's on Columbia, and we both kind of had something similar happen to each other, which was that one of the very first things we each had happen was like we kind of got like screwed over right away in one of our very first like deals. And we both kind of look at it now as like the biggest blessing in disguise because it's like,
Yeah,
okay, now that's out of the way. Let me go and try to figure things out and how to do it properly to protect myself from this happening again, rather than you doing it way later on where the stakes are much more incredibly high. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like the the people who are doing that.
welcome to the Words Matter Pod with Akil Pinnock, a podcast dedicated to storytellers. I'm here at the offices of Create Music Group in Hollywood with Carl LeGrett. Is that how you say your last name?
Carl LeGrett, yep.
All right. Senior Director of A&R Publishing at Create Music Group. Create Music Group is a data-driven music distribution and publishing company that pushes transparency between the label and creators. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So who are you?
Carl LeGrett. I mean, you gave the intro better than I probably can, but honestly, I'm just like I was saying before off camera, kid from upstate New York, Rochester, New York. Always had big music industry dreams. Just try to figure out a way to get here, but excited to be here now. Appreciate you having me big time.
Yeah, of course, and thank you for agreeing to do this interview.
No, of course.
Of course. So you grew up in Rochester, like you just said. What was life like there?
Rochester, man, I think a lot of people forget um Rochester is in New York, but is really closer to Canada than it is New York City. So um the winters are super long and super cold, and then the summers are really hot. But no, Rochester is a great place, and I think there's definitely like a level of like hunger and tenacity that everyone has being from Rochester for sure. And
Hmm.
it is really cool to see people like blossoming from Rochester, and it is a pretty creative place for sure.
Yeah.
And I luckily me making the move to LA and being a part of the music industry now, it's been really cool to like look to my left and to my right at some other people who have made some things happen from Rochester in the industry, and then also try my best to participate in like putting my hand down and grab the next person
Yeah.
that's interested in doing it. So that's been my favorite part for sure.
It is definitely important to reach back to where you from, especially I'm sure a lot of people where you from would be like, yo, your man Carl acting Hollywood.
So every once in a while, I think people people just you know they don't necessarily always understand that like a random FaceTime at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday is like not the way to go. And you know, the real ones do get it though, and they understand that there's a lot going on. But it is definitely kind of like a learning curve for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you do it the same thing.
Yeah, of course, definitely. I've been out here a shorter time than you, but yeah, I'm expecting that for sure. But I always think about the hometown. You got to. How does a kid from Rochester with, big goals of making it in the music business make it 3,000 miles away to LA?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, one thing that I'll kind of say is like my sort of like North Star per se has just always been like every day I want to do something to get a little bit closer to my goal. Some days like a crazy huge song comes out that I had a hand in putting together, and that's like a really big step, and it's like a super, moment where like there's a light shining on Create and myself, but then there's other days where it's a bunch of like background behind the scenes stuff. So I always just say like as long as I get a little bit closer, whether it's a big step or like a baby step, I kind of consider that day a win. And I think that's something that's kind of like given me momentum to just kind of keep going and going and keep trying to just stay on path. Um but the other thing I guess to give like a more um like answer that you can actually like kind of touch and feel is I tried, and I would recommend anyone do this, like, try to figure out a way to kinda, like, create some momentum for yourself, so when you're going into an interview or you're submitting your resume or you're doing this or you're doing that, you can kinda have something that you've been building, even if it's small, just independently yourself to also show, and that's actually exactly what I did at Create. I found myself in between summers and I didn't land any summer like internships or anything.
Yeah.
And I remember honestly kind of feeling a little crazy when like everybody I went to college with was talking about like they're an intern at this bank or at this or that or whatever. And I was like, damn, like I'm a little behind right now. Like I kind of started feeling crazy, but I actually just started like a Instagram page and I was just covering like some interesting like up and coming hip hop stuff that I thought was cool and I thought other people might care about, despite the fact that it was far from mainstream. And it ended up getting like 6 or 7 thousand followers, nothing too crazy. And then I had a lot of people like DMing me for like, yo, how much for a story post or for this or for that? And then a lot of people wanted help with like blog support. And I didn't have connections to any blogs. So I actually just created a website with Wix.
Yeah.
And then I just wrote the blog write ups myself because I wasn't connected to any blogs or anything. So I was like, let me figure out a way to be the blog myself. And then, it was pretty cool. I covered some interesting stuff back then. Um, Don Tolliver, funny story. I've actually never talked about this. Don Tolliver paid me $5 for a story post back then, and it was like way different. Um, One of his homies or someone on his team probably did it, not even him directly, but it's just interesting because everything is a bit closer than you think it
Yeah.
is. Um,
Especially in this internet age.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But long story short, I did a bunch of that stuff and I always felt confident applying to places that next summer because I had something in addition to just my resume that kind of like stood me apart from just being another like paper in the stack. Um so yeah, I mean, that would definitely be my advice to anybody who feels like they're in an area where it's like damn, but there's nothing going on over
Yeah.
here. Like, how could I even possibly do that? And, um, you know, some people are like closer to the action than others, but there's enough success stories now of people who have popped out and made it happen from the middle of nowhere that,
Yeah.
everyone's there.
Why LA and not New York? Because New York's closer.
Honestly, I was just so done with the seasons that I knew like where I wanted to go. And, like I said, those Rochester winters are cold and long. But yeah, I just knew that I wanted to, preferably be somewhere warmer. I was definitely looking at both, but you know, thank God I was just sitting in my dorm room in Dayton, Ohio, and I just came across an internship for a digital marketing position at Create on Indeed.com, and it just kind of fell into place from there. And I think I guess that would be another like piece of advice too. A lot of people always think like you can only do it with some sort of like secret family connection
Hmm.
or, know somebody who knows somebody, whatever. And of course that stuff helps. Like we can't act like it doesn't. But you know, taking advantage of just seeing things like that. And even if it's an opportunity somewhere that you do want to be, and it's not the exact role that you is like your dream role per se, I would advise 10 times out of 10 just go for it because like if you can get in the building and shine, it's
Yeah.
not that hard to pivot from there versus trying to just get it perfect from the get-go when you're on the outside looking in.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a good way to look at things for the I guess you say perspective
Yeah.
music business people. I read an article about you on Medium. Um, few years ago, like about 2 years ago, and it said that you used to find beats through Hoop Mixtape.
Yeah,
And
for
we
hoop
were talking
tapes.
about basketball a little bit earlier, so it makes sense. Hoop Mixtape was like a, well, it still exists, but it was a basketball high school basketball highlight channel on YouTube with like hip hop instrumentals playing in the background. So did you ever want to become a producer yourself?
Yeah, I definitely did. I definitely did. I could just never figure it out. I used to get
Yeah.
so frustrated, but I could just never figure it out. But no, like you said, like the beat is everything to me, and I owe everything to producers big and small for like getting my foot in the door at Create, because that's exactly what I did. Like once started working at Create back then, as many years ago, it was really focused on just a lot of YouTube monetization. And basically, what I did was I hit up a bunch of tight beat producers on YouTube, and I was saying like, "Hey, you're missing a bunch of money on YouTube. Yes, you're making money via AdSense on, your channel, because your channel is running up X amount of views per month and you're getting paid from that. But your beats on YouTube altogether, you're not getting paid for anything where it is on YouTube but is not on your channel."
Yeah.
And that goes for like Joe Schmo putting your beat through like a YouTube to MP3 converter and dropping a song, or this isn't around as much back this isn't around as much now, but back then it was a lot more popular that there were these like tight beat channels that weren't actually producers. They would
Hmm.
just post like their favorite, 10 beats of the week. So like you post something on your channel and then I just like rip it and post it on my channel. I'll give you credit and everything, but like you're not making any of the money off that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started, and I just started doing a bunch of that. But yeah, me even having my eye on the beat world or the internet producer world or whatever, all goes back to Hoop Mixtapes.
Yeah.
Cashmere Beats was a big one.
I remember them.
Jalil Beats was a
Hmm.
big one. Um, Obviously, like they've gone on to do incredible things. And yeah, that was the SoundClick days back then. I would just have SoundClick playlists full of beats, and like that's what I would listen to when I was like training or whatever. And then yeah, it all just kind of fell into place from there. It's weird. You don't even know like you're preparing what you're preparing for at the time. You're
Yeah.
just doing it because you like it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's like one of the keys to pursuing a career is just like really pursuing like the things that you were into as a child.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to monetize that.
And I will say that's one thing that I love about being in LA is I feel like other places, like people just kind of like give up quick.
Yeah.
Like I remember like people were deciding when we were like sophomores and juniors in like high school, like, all right, it's time to be realistic. Like maybe I like shadow my so and so or whatever who's a banker and see if I would like to do that for a career. But it's like, damn, like you're so young back then. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna give up on it back then. It's just crazy.
Hmm. What kind of production did you gravitate towards? Because a lot of those beats on Who Mixtape was very, very like drum heavy, kind of like underground hip hop beats in a way. So was that the kind of production that you gravitated towards?
Yeah, so that was definitely the production I gravitated towards for sure. And I feel like those beats were almost like a song within themselves,
Yeah.
which honestly has panned out to continue to happen, but it also has it there's two sides to it. Like Benny X, who might be the biggest producer out right now, he just did Search and Rescue by Drake. He's like Yeat's main producer. Yeat's got, the world on fire right now. His beats kind of remind me of that. Like you can listen to a Benny X beat as if it was just a song. So he kind of reminds me of that. But then on the other hand, what I noticed was when I was going through a lot of these type beat producers and channels or whatever, the thing is, it's like a fine line too, because you can have the most amazing beat in the world, but if the artist can't like freestyle or rap on it, it's just a cool beat. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be like a part of a song. And that's what I had to start like thinking about more, especially as I started working with more artists and trying to like grab the beats myself and facilitate placement opportunities and things like that. They got to be able to freestyle on them cool. But I would say the hoop mixtape examples, like those are probably the kind of like the former. Like they played their role in that instance. I don't necessarily know that somebody would make like a hit song on one of those
Yeah,
beats. Not to say it's impossible, of course, but I think that they were perfect for what they did.
yeah,
And the way that they had like the crossover bro falling as soon as the beat drops or the
yeah,
crazy dunk or block or whatever was just like, damn, this is nuts.
yeah. Definitely innovative at the time, and I think it kind of revitalized those that like that style of production in a way,
Yeah.
especially for like a younger generation who might not have been even listening to music with those kind of beats.
Right.
Yeah.
You have a favorite hoop mixtape?
Um it got to be like the John Wall.
The Holy Rams one? That
Yeah,
one is
or
crazy.
or Derrick Rose, Tyreek Evans.
Tyreek Evans. Remember
Yeah,
Seventh Woods?
Seventh Woods
Yeah,
for sure. A
crazy.
lot of these guys, they didn't really make it the
I
way we
know.
thought they would make it.
Yeah, I know. Akil Carr was my favorite one. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've ever seen that.
of course.
My
That's
twit
like the most popular one.
Yeah, my Twitter name was Akil Carl. He was too good.
Clever.
He was too good. Akil Carr.
Um, so in that same article on Medium, you explain what you do at Create, and you were saying how you're talking about being disruptors in the music business, and how transparent the company is with creators and the work that you guys do, uncovering millions of dollars in unclaimed royalties for artists. Explain why that kind of work is advantageous to artists.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, the biggest thing that we have, I mean, transparently showing artists their earnings on a daily basis, in addition to paying that money out monthly, I think is just like a game changer altogether. And I think a lot of times when artists do deals, any type of deal, independent distribution deal, major label deal, some sort of publishing situation, whatever the case may be, I don't think that they necessarily know how much their work is truly worth
Yeah,
and how much on a month to month basis, year to year basis, etc. it might be. And I think that like you can't really make an educated decision on whether you do or don't want to jump into this situation if you don't know that. And I think that that was actually something cool about a lot of the type beat producers I was working with back then was like, if I was getting them $100,000 per year and they were getting offered some sort of co-publishing situation for 250 or 300,000, and that situation was one where, you know, 50-50 split, maybe 75-25 split on the other side, but the retention period was like for the lifetime of the copyright or this or that. It was like, whoa, I'm giving up a lot for an amount of money that isn't nothing, but I'm already doing 100K
yeah,
per year by myself just off of YouTube. So really, when you start putting two and two together, the multiple that I'm worth is like much higher than what's in this offer. And I think that's been something that's been like a big, big difference. And that's kind of like an example of showing like how somebody can really like use and leverage that data to make a big, big difference for themselves as far as like what they do or don't jump into. I think that's been super, super cool to see. Like people aren't like jumping into the first thing anymore. They're kind of like sitting back, weighing their options, choosing what's best for them. And honestly, I think that's probably the way it should be. I mean, like, you wouldn't just buy a car, you wouldn't just buy a house, there's a lot that goes into it, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So it is interesting to think about for sure.
How do you how does that model of trying to, I guess, is that like a form of auditing in a way? Like trying to figure out what is missing, or what you need to, yeah, like what's missing. Like, is that a form of auditing? And like, how can that's assumed that the artist isn't being exposed to that kind of transparency through whatever label that they're signed to, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's not necessarily anyone's fault because, you can be signed to a label on the master side, but you can be unpublished. So all your publishing royalties are just fully uncollected. That's not necessarily the label's fault. 9 times out of 10, it's probably not their fault at all. But the artist might just not know. And then they might not know the dollar amount that's attached to it. And it's hard to give exact numbers, but you can get pretty close with like, running forecasts and coming up with estimates. And then it's just I always say it's good to give the artist the information to make like an informed decision because and I tell people a lot of times I kind of changed my perspective a few years back when I talked to the artist and my main goal was like I hope you walk away with this conversation with like a better level of understanding. If you do, I count that as a win, not
Mhm.
necessarily like, did you sign to me? Did you sign up for this service?
Yeah.
Did you this or that? And once I kind of started doing that, like everything else kind of fell into place. But yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff out there and also there's a lot more ways to freely collect now, which I think is really, really cool. There's like services and platforms that have like kind of cut out the middleman and let you do it yourself. But the unfortunate reality that comes with that too is there's a lot of theft, like people dropping stuff that, their favorite artist previewed on Instagram and
Mm.
using something or this or that too. So I think you know, pointing out what's out there and sitting for people is of course super, super important, but also pointing out to them what, false things may be happening in real time too is also super important because it's like if I told you I had $5 for you, you might not necessarily care. But if I told you this is your $5, bro, is taking, you're
Yeah.
gonna be like, nah, forget that. I need
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting for sure.
Mhm. Do you ever feel like I mean, the term to disrupt, it's like an aggressive word, right? So does that you feel like that's gonna come with like any negative backlash from the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you as far as like that word kind of having like a positive or negative spin depending on how you look at it. But I don't know. I mean, the way that I see it is like the disruptors and the first in the industry are the ones that end up making the real change. And sometimes that initial disruption ends up being the norm later on. And I mean, you can look at like anything when it comes to that, like companies like Create,
Yeah.
Tesla, etc. Like, you know, I think more so it's about figuring out like creative and strategic ways to like lean into things. And I think that's where we're at right now. That's what I'm most excited about for and I'm really really interested to see what happens in like this music AI space and obviously there's going to be, a level of like take everything down and kind of like run away from it per se. But I also am really interested to see like who leans into it and makes it something that they benefit from too. Because I have noticed that happening more and more. I mean, like, if you're an artist that, you know, all you do is like crazy, like boom, bap, rap, like that's
Yeah.
all you do, whatever. But you've always been interested in like trying to drop like a Frank Ocean type song or something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, maybe you can use it to your advantage that way and see like what the reception is before you really have to like jump on Front Street and potentially get like ran over for it or
Mhm.
whatever. Um Also with like music leaking a lot. You see a lot of like big hip hop artists like their music leaks.
Yeah.
Obviously that sucks like, you know, hate to see it happen. I hate when I hear stories about like it messing up the whole rollout and this and that. Like it's the worst. But I also do know for a fact, like secretly, there are also artists who have used it to their advantage and they'll like accidentally leak a song so you can see what the reception would be to
Yeah.
it and kind of like you can kind of like get a temperature check on yourself. So again, I think it's just about figuring out like innovative and strategic ways to lean into things.
Yeah. Like how do these royalties even go up missing? Like, like I guess you I guess you just explained that in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, it a lot of people, it's nobody's business to teach you the business, but at the same time, I'll actually double down on that. It's nobody's business to teach you the business, but also it's really hard to learn it to some extent from the outside looking in also, unless you're actually in there doing it. And I think it kind of just like goes into that. Like people don't necessarily realize that um your label or your distributor is not responsible for collecting 100% of
Yeah,
everything. And, that might go for like your sound exchange money or publishing, neighboring rights, etc.
because you're an independent contractor at the end
Yeah.
of the day. Yeah.
And then you know, I don't think everybody fully like understands the grasp of like depending on how you're signed, like do you or do you not control like your name and likeness? Cause even it can be non-music stuff. Like if you go on Instagram live and have a really viral moment and that's yours that you captured on your phone and it's something that the next day is on YouTube uploaded in 100 different places and all of them do 1,000 views per day, that's 100,000 views per day. Like you
Hmm.
can make some real money off of that.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that. Um, is it difficult though, like the process of even finding these, like uncovered or
Yeah. So, I mean,
unclaimed royalties?
luckily, luckily for me and luckily for Create, like we do just have such high level tech that like we're able to track it down a lot. But also there's definitely like a manual level to it too, um everybody is like search for stuff on YouTube and this and that, but it kind of is similar to that. There's different strategic ways you can type things in to try to get results that have what you're looking for within that video without necessarily just typing in like the artist name and the song name.
Hmm.
Um but also I mean like it'll teach you how to be alert for sure and just keep your eyes and ears open. You never know if you're watching your favorite YouTubers vlog or this or that or whatever, and you might hear something in the background.
Mm.
Um, you know, you never know where it can come up. And as as interesting and like tech geeky as it is to like look for and uncover a lot of this stuff, there's an element of being creative within it too,
Mm.
which I think is super super cool and like inspiring, honestly.
Yeah. Can you explain that, like the creative part of finding these?
Yeah, I mean, you might find specific channels that make their own mashups to things, and then you figure out that they're like very strategically like finding one offset song, but the beat to that song matches perfectly with Tyga's verse on
Mm.
this G Easy song where he's a feature, and it goes great with the intro verse to this Metro Boomin song that 21 Savage had the bridge on or whatever, and they mash it all up together, and then you can see it for one final product that whoever made it did, but then you can also kind of like zoom out from a 3D lens and kind of see it layer by layer too,
Yeah.
where it's like damn, these are three different songs. And sometimes it's pretty impressive sometimes
Yeah.
how people can so like seamlessly tie it all together.
Yeah.
um but
You gotta have a good air.
yeah, yeah. It's like anything, like, the the normal way to do things is definitely not always the best way to do things.
Mm.
Um,
That's a bar.
yeah, and sometimes somebody looking at things from, like, a fresh glance or whatever can be the one thing that changes everything.
Mm. I want you to speak a little more on like the type beat world.
My world.
Explain to people what that means.
So, basically, I mean, the simplest way to put it is it's essentially, like, a lot of producers who are posting their beats or their instrumentals on YouTube for the world to see, use, listen to, whatever. And they're making specific beats in a specific style that they think this artist would be a good fit for. And then what they do is they title it, Drake type beat. And then it might be a beat that's very similar to all the beats on
Yeah.
if you're reading this too late or whatever. But you know, those are my guys. That's my world. Like, it's absolutely insane to see how many hit songs, Billboard Hot 100 hit songs came from YouTube type beats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's absolutely crazy. There's some, Billboard Hot 100 top 10s. There's songs that are diamond. There's countless platinum songs. Like, it's really, really crazy, especially because, like, at one point in time, I think that world was looked down upon a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, like,
People copying.
they're just an internet producer. They're
Yeah.
just these are bedroom producers, whatever. But it's like some of these kids are plaqued up now, like, super plaqued up, multi-million-dollar pub deals, this and that. It's like it's interesting for sure. And it's cool
Yeah.
to see too, like, inspiration can come from anywhere, like I said. And I even saw, like, you know, I work with a producer who had a song on an Ariana Grande album 2 or 3 years ago, and, I believe what ended up happening was, like, the main producer for Ariana Grande, like, heard that and was, like, inspired and created something based off of that he got to participate in, and that ended up being the song. So, it's just really, really cool to see that and to know, people are watching no matter, like, how big or small. Like, I remember, like, Stay Solid Rocky has a song Party Girl, which is now, like, 4 or 5 times platinum. Um, that's a song that came from a tight beat from producer Nashi, and, like, Drake followed both Nashi and Stay Solid Rocky.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think that a tight beat a kid might have made in, like, his bedroom gets the attention of Drake, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But I think it's kinda like a full circle thing to what we were talking about earlier, is, like, nothing's truly so much out of arm's reach as it
Yeah.
seems, especially with the internet, like you said. Like, it kinda is right there. It's just about being strategic and how you, like, you know, put it out, and, how you can, like, capture people's attention, and then, you're off to the races from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I've heard so many stories about artists. They were having a difficult time finding like beats for new songs or new albums, and they would just search like their name type beat
Yeah.
and find some production for some producer. And then back to like what you were saying with like people um not giving not giving these producers their credit, saying that they're bedroom producers, but it's like everybody starts in their bedroom.
Facts. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. I mean, like, basketball before, the Nerf hoop, or just sitting in your room, like,
Exactly.
working on your form or whatever, like, you never know what it might be, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any specific examples of when you found these unclaimed royalties that you could, I don't want you to give too many people's business up.
Yeah. I think a great example is this producer Ricky Desktop, who is, like, the most viral producer on TikTok. And I think that I just don't think he knew how much his beats were being used, like, off the platform. I think he knew that he was viral, like, he knew that everything that was going on, but I mean, the amount of money that he was getting paid on, like, a monthly basis was just, like, like, it was just crazy, like,
Mm.
the amount of virality this had and how, like, off platform it went. And you know, even now you can catch his beats in, like, the background of, like, Buffalo Wild Wings commercials
Mm.
and things like that. Yeah. And I'll play it for you after, but, like, you definitely know what it is, even if you
Yeah.
don't know. Like, it's one of those types of things. So that was super, super interesting. A cool, like, success story from creator Leon is the epic rap parody freestyles. If you remember, like, Super Hot Fire and all that,
Yeah.
like Sweet Dollar Tea from McDonald's and all that. Huge success story early on for Create. Like, um, I'm pretty sure he was about to, like, join the military, I'm pretty sure. And, like, within a few amount of days of Creek claiming, they were like, bro, like, you got this much money, like, sitting
Yeah.
out here floating around. And, like, the rest of his life, like, changed from there. And um what a cool guy too. Like I said, you never know, like, it can just pop off from anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you really never know.
Hmm. So how is that beneficial to create? Helping all these artists. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me is, like, I saw something recently that was saying like the best way to network is like horizontally. But I mean, for me, like helping a lot of these guys out slowly but surely, one by one, like everybody has like grown into some sort of like crazy role. Like some people are so and so's main producer, this person, that person, whatever. So I think now it was just a really cool way to immediately provide value for a lot of these people in being, you have money floating around missing there for you. We'll get it, give it to you, track it down, give it to you. But at the same time, is a really, really cool and interesting way to build out a like multifaceted network super,
Mm.
super quickly. And then, in doing that, I've been able to become kind of like a unique dot connector for a lot of
Yeah.
different things. And this artist is looking for something like this. Well, I work with this producer who works with him, or I work with this producer who works with this artist that I think they're similar to, or whatever. So just being able to facilitate a lot of different things, all thanks to the fact that like this network's been built out, all thanks to the fact of, just jumping on the opportunities of helping a lot of these people out one by one with whatever's floating around or whatever's missing. And it's cool too, because I have times now where somebody will hit me up and they don't have anything out there. And they're just like, I want to start because I want to be ready for when it does happen. So they're not behind at all.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's really, really interesting too. I was talking to a, a lawyer yesterday who we do a bunch of different things with. And, we were just having an interesting conversation of like, it's getting more increasingly difficult to kind of like go backwards and, grab money from stuff like this amount of money sitting based on X streams. And there's a lot of different reasons why for that. But, um, I just think it's cool that, we can provide such a, unique service to different creators, track down what's rightfully theirs in the first place, stop, bad actors from grabbing stuff, and, really make a big, big impact on them. I remember with a lot of the type beat guys in the beginning, you know, they were coming to create in, not that it matters, but like, whatever, like sweatpants, Crocs, this, that, whatever. They come back a year later, you know, dripped out in the coolest stuff. But more importantly, they're posting the pictures of them buying their mom a car. They're
Yeah.
posting the pictures of moving their family from, this apartment to this big crib in the suburbs, or, different stories like that. So it's just really, really cool to know you played a role in that, whether super big or super small. And like I said before, it's a really, really awesome way to keep you motivated and inspired at the same time.
Yeah. I have a question. Well, obviously I have plenty of questions. That's why we're here. But I want to know about like are there any older artists, I guess you say legacy artists, who approach you and approach create, and they're figuring out, like they want to figure out where their money's at for certain things, right? But it might be, say it was a artist who was popping in the 80s and they did a commercial for a company that no longer exists, right? Their music was licensed in that commercial, like, and they want to, and they're doing some auditing and they're trying to figure out where that money is.
Mhm.
How are you able to find that?
So I'll say there's two important things to think about, but unfortunately, those a lot of those times when those like conversations surface and come to me, the unfortunate reality is like that artist isn't really sure of what the business was back then.
Mm,
Like, hey, bro, did you sign these rights over
mm,
in their entirety? Were you signed to a production company that actually controls the rights to this, that, the third, etc.? And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with like being able to show people their worth in real time and what it truly is kind of like giving people the education and the almost like the ammo to go into things and think about them differently and not just jump on the first opportunity. And I think that's something that we're doing now that unfortunately wasn't always the case back then. But secondly, we have had like instances where it does work out. And I mean, it's not always super, super easy to collect royalties on like older songs, older videos, those older views, older streams,
Yeah.
but you can always grab new stuff from old videos,
Mm.
old streams, etc., old songs, etc. So it's just about the opportunity, like, it making sense across the board. But like I said, I think unfortunately not everybody like knows the business fully and in and out. Um, or at least they didn't at that time when that like placement was happening. Um, and because of that, sometimes it could be more tricky. But again, the upside in that is like with what we're doing now, it's kind of stopping a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
in its tracks.
You guys work with a lot of artists that are signed to major labels, right? And Create is an independent company, right? It's not a part of, Warner, Universal, Sony. So for the artists that are a part of, the big three labels that do work with you, is it like a conflict of interest?
I think it just goes back to like I was saying before, knowing knowing what's going on ahead of time, because basically you can be signed to Atlantic through Warner, or you can be signed to Epic through Sony, or you can be signed to, you know, Def Jam through UMG, but that has nothing to do a lot of times with your publishing.
Yeah.
So we can still work with you on that side of things. Um, a lot of artists are also branching out and doing a lot of different things now as well, which I think is super, super cool. And I'm helping some artists with their non-music stuff. Some of them have gaming channels. Some of them are, streaming Grand Theft Auto on, Twitch, Kick, Rumble, whatever. A lot of them are doing a lot of these other things. So there's always kind of ways to fit in, and I think that is probably the part about Create that I like the most is like everybody has some sort of gap in some way, shape, or form. And based on just like the plethora of services we offer, usually we can come in and like, help bridge whatever that is and, play our part in, helping what might be that like that weak spot for an
Yeah.
artist, team, label, creator, etc.
Yeah. And you mentioned how being signed to a label, one of the labels in the big three, um, may not have anything to do with your publishing. Can you explain to people what exactly publishing is?
Yeah, so I mean, in the most basic sense, like if you think about a song as like sheet music, it's like almost essentially that. Like everybody who contributed to that in some way, shape, or form, whether on the lyric or beat side, is entitled to compensation every single time that song gets played, spun on the radio, streamed, viewed on YouTube, etc.
Or sold the sheet music?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So and that's it. And then, more specifically, there's, your performance royalties, what you'll work with a PRO for, whether BMI, ASCAP, CSAC if you're in the US, SOCAN if you're in Canada, or one of the other ones if you're based in another place ex US. And then there's mechanical royalties as well. And I think it's cool that there's a lot of ways to collect this stuff yourself without, signing your entire life away or whatever.
Yeah.
Going back to like, some of those like instances you mentioned with like artists from back in the 80s or whatever, like sometimes you hear horror stories about what has happened. Um so I think that, yeah, again, it's just really cool. And then you can kind of, again, like I said earlier too, it's not the easiest thing to learn from the outside looking in, but because a lot of people can participate in figuring out different ways to collect from here by myself independently or here by myself independently, etc., you can kind of learn a lot of those different things too. And then,
Yeah.
it's really cool to me to see some of these people like, really putting on their glasses and like digging through statements and looking for different patterns and this and that. And, seeing a spike and like, damn, I've been making a consistent 4K per quarter off this song, but why did I make 20K this month? The song has been
Mm.
out for 2 years or whatever. Oh, it was a viral TikTok trend that it was in the background of. Oh, it entered like the top 10 on like most added to urban radio or whatever, things like that. So I think it's super, super cool to dig into a lot of that stuff. And I think it's awesome that like it's being more transparently shown to people. And then, the ones who can kind of figure it out and put two and two together themselves, like end up just being like super successful and just like beasts in the industry
Yeah,
for years to come.
yeah. So I mean, you talked about how it does make you feel good to see an artist, not only just improve their appearance, but also improve the lives of everyone around them. But how does it feel to provide artists with knowledge?
Yeah. That's definitely the best part. Like I said, there are days where I almost like wish it was as simple as one, two, three, because people are asking me questions about this or that and don't necessarily realize like their question doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, like that's part of being an A&R for sure. And I think, as much as being an A&R is signing talent, fostering that talent, developing that talent, putting together songs, creating collaborations that make sense and create hits. I think it's equally as important to be like, you know, a teacher as well.
Yeah,
And that's kind of like what I was saying before, like when whatever day my mindset kind of changed on like when me and you have a conversation about, create services or what I think I can offer or whatever, my like, you know, chapter one is like, I hope you walk away from this like conversation with like more information. You can make an informed decision. You understand. And then like whether we decide to work together or not, like that's kind of chapter two.
yeah. Hmm. Not pushing anyone to work with you, it definitely helps your relationship with them.
Yeah, totally. That's actually I was just talking about my dad about this matter of fact, but like it's funny how I'll go to these like business dinners or something with whoever, and a lot of times I find like my favorite ones are like where we're just talking about random stuff the whole
Hmm.
time. And then, if we're going there for a specific goal cuz we want to like brainstorm this or that, like I want to leave that with that being accomplished. But if it's more of just like a hey, I'm in town, let's get together, blah blah blah, sometimes I almost find it more productive to just like chill and like
Yeah,
talk about the NBA playoffs or talk about this or talk about that. Um, because like, I don't know, sometimes people in the industry can feel like robots. Like, I
hmm,
don't know if you probably feel that. Like, yeah,
transactional.
Dom probably feels that
Yeah,
sometimes too. But um, I find it like the reason I say I find it almost more productive sometimes when it's you and the person are just kind of like shooting the shit or whatever is because when that like genuine relationship is there, I might offer, for this deal, okay, $200,000, and they're like, yeah, bro, like I'm just gonna be honest with you, like, we're looking for something more like 450, and I might be like, okay, well, I can't do it, but good luck with everything, and just like things like that.
yeah,
That's the other thing too. Like sometimes I feel like people in the industry be getting like real life mad about stuff. It's like, bro, like, you know, I've seen like this label get like mad at a lawyer because their client went somewhere else. And then I've been like, bro, like, what do you expect? Like, he's
yeah.
got to do what his client wants to do.
Hmm.
Like, you guys' relationship can be this or that, but I don't know. It's just interesting. But
Yeah.
the music industry is an interesting place for sure. There's a
Hmm.
lot of I've met some of like the best people that I feel like will be friends that I'll call on some random shit about this or that or whatever. And then I've met some other people that's like, we can work together, but like we're probably not really gonna be like hanging out at
Hmm.
all. And then there's some other people where it's like, if you're going left, I'm going right.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Like,
Yeah, no, I get it. Definitely shouldn't take things too personal, right? Because you're not the only business around.
yeah, exactly.
Back to the topic of publishing. There's a lot of armchair A&Rs, in the in the world, especially with social media. We have so much access to information and so many music industry topics being discussed. Why is publishing important? And what is the difference between, like, what is owning your masters?
Yeah. So I mean, it's everything for real. Obviously, like the two sides to every song is like the master side and then the publishing side. Again, like the master side is more or less going to be whose track it is. And a lot of people hear that and they're like, "Oh, I'm listening to this artist right now and this is their track." But, more oftentimes than not it's not. It's the label
Mhm.
that, controls those songs. However, on the publishing side, everybody again who contributed and contributed to writing that song in some way, shape, or form, uh, that's where they get to participate. And writing means a lot of different things. Like I said,
Mhm.
any contribution to that sheet music, you could be the producer, you could be the artist, you could be the featured artist, you could be somebody who originally wrote the reference if it's that type of song, um, or even if it's not forward facingly supposed to be that type of song. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's where everybody really gets to, you know, reap the benefits of their work. And I think the reason I say it's everything is because like in the beginning, when it's being created, or when you're a kid and you just do this or do that, and it's just that fun creative process and you're just excited about, you know, producing something and like, like just making like a basic creation. It's it's everything because that's how you like maintain your ownership of it, and that's how you participate in the royalties that are generated down the line from every stream, click, view, spin, whatever. And it's like I said, it's how you reap the benefits from that creation exactly. So, I mean, it's definitely everything, and it's a shame when like things go a different way early
Yeah.
on or whatever. But like I said, it is super cool and super like positive to look towards the future, and
Yeah.
how many people can like see these things more transparently and truly know their worth.
Mhm. And is what is music licensing? Is that the same as publishing?
So I mean, on a basic tip, like licensing your music out to, you know, this commercial, or it's basically allowing somebody to exploit it, and you're basically giving them permission to do it even though it belongs to you and not them.
Yeah.
And I think
For a certain duration.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely a fan of a lot of these more like licensing type deals where the artist is still the sole owner of their masters, but they're teaming up with a company such as Create or whatever in a strategic way to prov- will provide the resources to them so that it'll be way bigger than it ever could have been, them doing it just by themselves completely independently, but all while allowing them to maintain that
Yeah.
same independence. The masters are still them. They'll revert back to them if it is a certain amount of time. And, you know, like I said before, with that song or whatever being like a creation, like that's really like your baby at one point in time. It's really cool that these types of deals are going to allow that artist to make money for their grandkids at one point in time, if
Yeah.
that's what they choose to do. Or that's going to be an asset that they own for X amount of time, and then maybe they'll do some sort of deal later on where they sell it to company X, Y, or Z for whatever crazy multiple or price or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's just interesting that this kind of like pivot and change will allow people the opportunity to do things like that later on down the line if they choose to do so.
Yeah. Do you think that this transparency will lead to a a certain precedent being changed in bigger businesses?
Yeah, I mean, man, I definitely hope so.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I mean, I think, you know, it'll be really, really cool to see. I don't see how it couldn't, honestly. You know, some of these platforms where you're digging into statements or seeing the royalties generated from whatever seem just like super unnecessarily complicated and almost like dinosaur like to look through,
Yeah.
which is just like a complete contradiction to the fact that like the music industry is such a like forward facing, innovative, ever changing, high tech thing. Like, I feel like every day we're getting like hit up about some new like marketing proposal where we can do this and everything can be showcased to this or that or whatever. And it's like, damn, this is crazy. And you mean to tell me that this is the same industry where like some of those other things on the opposite side are happening? Um, it's just it seems off. So I think that it's really, really cool for us to be able to do that and to provide that transparency where people can see what's going on in real time.
Yeah.
And then also, for a lot of our stuff, we pay out monthly too,
Mm.
and that's super, super interesting. A lot of other people pay 2, 3, 4 times a year. We'll actually pay out monthly, and I think that makes a big difference too because there are special cases where it does make sense, but for the most part, there's no need to be like holding on to somebody's royalties for an unnecessary amount of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that that's been something that's really, really cool too. Because the reality in some cases is like people can't wait 4 months for this check or 6 months or a year or whatever. And us being able to do that and, turn it around from you're missing money, we're collecting it for you here, check this out, look what we're doing every day, to boom, it's in your pocket.
Yeah.
I think is really, really cool.
So, do these artists pay Create for these services, or do you guys take a percentage of whatever was missing?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that it can be done just based on how the business is structured ahead of time, but a lot of times it's usually the latter.
Okay.
It's just all split based. Sometimes people have a lot of stuff floating around out there. They have a lot of stuff on the way, or they've contributed to some huge or viral moment, and they might want something that's a super, super high split in their favor, and they might not be looking for any money up front. In other cases, people may want uh you know the super bag up front, in which case that might be more of like a 50-50 split and come with a lot more resources as far as like you can come in here, use the studio, create a collaborative environment for them. And then there's a lot of different things like in between as well. And I think again that's something that's like been super awesome about Create is we can pretty much work with anybody in some way, shape, or form, and we can also kind of like tailor make the deal to them.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's got to make sense for both of us, but we can kind of like it's not like, oh, this is the standard. This is how we do deals. Take it or leave it. It's this or it's this. Like we're every deal we do is pretty much something in the middle. Where we're like making it make sense for both sides. The artist is getting what they're truly worth. We're helping provide the resources that we can and just trying to take everything to the next level for
Yeah.
sure.
I want to go back to we kind of just like glazed over it, but the technology, right? Because you mentioned the technology that you guys use to find this,
Mhm.
these unclaimed royalties, monies. Um, Tell us about that technology.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different things out there. I think YouTube has done like a super super great job like building out their like thumbprint system, which essentially will allow a track's like reference file, which is a WAV file, to like find a lot of like third party use cases that are floating around out there. And then Create can obviously help amplify that and fill in the cracks with looking for different things of, where the song might be in the background of this or floating around here or whatever. But then also, our client portal that's super transparent, forward facing, like we've referred to a bunch of times. Seeing how much money you're making in real time is obviously awesome, but you can also see a breakdown asset by asset of like this is making you this much money per month, this is making you that much, etc. And I think that's super super cool for people to see because they might have thought something else was their most popular song and not know that no, it's really this because this
Yeah.
is a trend that's in the background of all these Fortnite montages or all these TikTok compilations or this or that. And then to take it a step further, you can also actually see every single use case of that song, every individual video.
Mhm.
So that's super, super cool too. Cause you know, you might notice like some crazy spike someday, uh, which I've been a part of in the past. I guess to give like a example that actually happened in real time. Like I noticed an artist's earnings go from whatever it was to boom, one day it just spiked crazy. And
Yeah.
they basically made what they usually make in a month and a day. And I was like, damn. And then you look a little closer, like, you know, move some of the stuff out of the way, and then you uncover like this super famous YouTuber had this song playing in the background while he was doing a challenge to set the record of like holding his breath underwater for like 13 minutes or something. Like just crazy instances like that. And it's really, really cool to be like hands on and seeing that in real
Yeah.
time.
Mhm. You guys have some controversial people that you work with on your roster. You guys work with YNW Melly and 6ix9ine, and as an A&R, you're the one who goes out and finds artists as well for the company to sign. Is there something like in your moral compass that would prevent you from wanting to work with an artist based on something that they did or allegedly did?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing for me is like I've never been the type of person to necessarily like jump to judge a book by its cover. And also, you know, I'm here behind my laptop getting to it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know what is or what isn't going on, you know, outside of like these walls per se. Um, so I mean, kind of like what I always do is it goes back to just genuine relationships. Like it just kind of depends to me on how things are unfolding in real time as like we're having these conversations and kind of like, you know, I go with my gut more oftentimes than not. Um, and you know, at the end of the day, as much as we can tie it to this or that, like we do have a job at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and it's to uncover everything we can for these people and, you know, to push it back to them. And whether somebody did X, Y, or Z, if it's rightfully theirs, it's rightfully theirs, and that's the way it's gonna go.
That's true.
Um, and I mean, like, I'm certainly not the person to be in a position to like make these decisions on like this person doing this or that or whatever they have going on in their personal life. Um, you know, like I said, at the end of the day, I have a job, and that job is dealing with music and what's going on in this ever fast paced industry and
Mhm.
where everything's floating around and trying to grab it and redirect it to them. And I think the interesting thing too is like, you know, 6ix9ine is somebody who a lot of people have a lot of opinions on, but also, I mean, I have conversations behind closed doors with people
Yeah.
about the fact that we service 6ix9ine, and a lot of those people more or less give me props for doing it because they realize that it's like this is somebody who's super super viral on the internet, which
Yeah.
means because of that he needs the best of the best looking at and for whatever he has floating around out there. And if Create and Carl's the guy that's doing that, that's somebody that I want to work with too, because imagine what they could do for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's just interesting too, and just, you know, having those transparent conversations with people to the extent that it's possible. And um, you know, like I said, at the end of the day, it's a job, and we all got a job to do.
Yeah, that's true as well. Um, there's also, a lot of negative stereotypes about how the music business is evil and people are fake. Um, what can you say about your experiences thus far in this industry?
Um, it's funny. I was actually just talking to Wavi yesterday. He's got a super super talented artist, Xavier, who's on Columbia, and we both kind of had something similar happen to each other, which was that one of the very first things we each had happen was like we kind of got like screwed over right away in one of our very first like deals. And we both kind of look at it now as like the biggest blessing in disguise because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now that's out of the way. Let me go and try to figure things out and how to do it properly to protect myself from this happening again, rather than you doing it way later on where the stakes are much more incredibly high. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like the the people who are doing that, I feel oftentimes probably had that done to them before in the past,
Mm,
and it's just kind of like a cycle that to some extent can seem like it's repeating itself. But when instances like that happen, the way that I look at it is you have one of two paths you can go down. You know, you can do things like that, or you can do the opposite, which is kind of what we were talking about before with Rochester, like reach your hand down and try to grab somebody and pull them up.
yeah.
And I think the other thing that's like a direct correlation to is just like instant results versus like the slow bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, when the dust settles X amount of time later, like the real ones are always still going to be around,
Yeah.
still going to be making it happen, still going to be a part of another song, still going to be another part of another hit. And those other ones are going to be a story about like you remember so and so.
Mm. I mean, and I think what you said about uh just people who've done like you dirty, they probably did that. They've probably been done dirty themselves. Um, so it's like a cliche says, "Hurt people, hurt people." Um, but that is definitely true, and I think that that statement is very profound that you said because it can be true. Some people just feel like because it happened to them, it's standard. So you just got to continue that. Um, you've been a create since you graduated college, and a lot of people don't have the best experiences with their first job. Right out of college, is create everything that you expected it to be as a kid from Rochester who had dreams of making it in the music business?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like I was kind of saying to you before, I always knew that I was going to like figure my way out how. I just never knew. I always knew I would figure it out. I never knew how exactly I would figure it out, but I knew that just like my knowledge of what's going on and all the behind the scenes things and just like kind of like a crazy like interest in uncovering everything. Like it was never being a fan of the music was never enough for me. Like I always had to know like exactly like this artist is from where, what's going on
Mm,
in that music scene, what other artists is he tied to? Is he signed to some sort of bigger thing? How does that bigger conglomerate work? Who else do they have under that umbrella, etc. And you know, coming to create really allowed me to just kind of like use those skills to my advantage in a lot of different ways, but then also like the biggest props to create, ever for allowing its employees to all truly be entrepreneurs. Like if there's so many people within this create building who at one point in time, this is what they did.
yeah,
They were responsible for onboarding assets. But now they had this crazy idea and that idea is what they focus on 24/7 and it's making all this money and
yeah,
there's a lot of people like that somebody who created retirement house, Adi and Brandon. So that's like if you've seen like the Hype House like
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
TikTok, they basically created one that's like senior citizens and like within a year that has like 5.5 million followers. It's got a gazillion views on all platforms combined. They have a podcast now that they've built out where they got Annalie Chapa, Lil Pump, Ray Shremmerd have all been guests, amongst many others. And at one point in time, Adi was somebody who was like working for Create, like looking around and scanning and claiming videos. Then he went to sell marketing services for Flighthouse, and now he created this. And I think like, he's just a super, super success story of the fact that Create is just that, like a place where like entrepreneurs can flourish for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm. So you kind of lucked out.
Yeah, I kind of lucked out. Like I said, um, what I'm doing now versus what I was doing when I was initially an intern is completely, completely different.
Yeah,
And it just ties back to what I said kind of earlier is you know, get yourself in the building, do a good job, showcase your talent. It's not that hard to pivot into creating what you want to do from that.
Yeah.
Um, and that's like definitely a huge piece of advice for sure.
But the key is that, that you wanting to pivot would be embraced, right, by whoever is
Totally.
higher up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's totally true.
Mm. What's your ultimate goal in this business?
Man, I mean, I think it's kind of a moving target to be honest with you, but at this point in time, I think I just want to be able to like help as many people that I can. Um, at one point in time, like I looked at like Jimmy Iovine as like the gold standard for what I wanted to try to do, and like you look at the Billboard Hot 100 charts, he's got songs one through whatever, and I thought like, damn, that would be super crazy. And those are the types of like big steps in getting closer to your goals, like I was saying before, or milestones that really hit home and make you feel like what you're doing is special. But um, I've really liked to just being able to help as many people as I can, and playing a role in the success pretty much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back to basketball, like if you scored 3 points, but you really played your role and played great defense and you were a part of, a great win, that's gonna feel a lot different than a loss or a win where you feel like you didn't really contribute. So,
Yeah.
so I think that's been like my thing since I turned 26 back in October for this year is just like being that role player, embracing your role and you know, doing it to the best of your abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, you learn a lot of life lessons through basketball. A lot of people that didn't play, they don't understand that.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
definitely
definitely you
true.
definitely could learn a lot from a person from basketball as well. Um, what's next for Carl LeGrett?
Man, I think what's next for Carl is just continuing to put this forward facing, you know, transparently showcasing what the artist is truly worth on my back and just trying to continue to spread that message of like, hey, no type of deal is a good deal, no type of deal is a bad deal. It's all about what makes sense for you, but just continuing to educate everybody as much as possible so they can then obviously have the information to weigh their options and jump into what truly does make the most sense for them. Because I think at the end of the day, if there's 1,000 people who are in that instance, this whole community is going to be like a much more creative space, a space where everybody can flourish much more than if there's only one person that has that type of situation for themselves.
Yeah. I like what you just said though about no deal is a good deal or a bad deal. It's all about what works for you. It's true.
Totally.
Because yeah, I mean, what is a good deal or a bad deal, At the end of the day, you might grow as a person, you get older and you make more money and your entrepreneurial mind develops and you realize that with the deal I signed back then wasn't necessarily the best, but you learned from it, right?
Totally.
And you did what you needed to do at that time, right? But then what might have been a good deal is a bad deal to someone else. So I understand that. What do you think is next for a Create Music Group?
Man, for create, I think, at this point in time, we're obviously still a relatively new company, but we're definitely more than just on the map. Like we're making a lot of waves. We've put up a ton of hit records, hit albums, reach the charts in a lot of different ways on the publishing side, on the distribution side, etc. And I think it's just, continuing to build that out. And I really like that in the past year, it's kind of been a common denominator for people that's like, you know, create in these like studio conversations. Like, oh, you work with Create too?
Mm,
Oh, yeah, I work with Create for so and so. Oh, they help me with my marketing. Oh, I'm working with, Carl. He helps me run my YouTube channel. Oh,
yeah,
this, that, the third, whatever. And I think that at right now that's kind of like that bubbling stage, and when it just blows over the top, it's gonna be super super cool, and also like the real life element to it as well, where it's like this place is gonna be just absolutely insane on the weekends, and the creative like space that this is gonna foster is I'm super excited to see like the hit records that end up getting made from out of here because it's gonna be like, all these people are clients of Create in different shapes, forms, and sizes, and everybody's benefiting from it in some way, shape, or form. And then, you never know who you're gonna see when you walk out there. You never
Yeah.
know what's going on. I mean, even right now, there's a studio session going on in one thing. There's another interview with Our Generation Music going on in another thing, whatever. And it's just like it's super cool to see, and
Yeah.
I'm so glad this super weird like pandemic time is over, and now we can get back to everybody being outside and around each other, and the sparks that'll be created from that, and
Mhm.
what'll end up being the product of that.
Yeah. Carl, you're a front-facing employee in the music business, and it's a business that can't exist without words and lyrics. Um, so why do words matter to you?
Man, words matter to me because I mean that's everything. There's you know what you say and what you do, and backing that up in your actions is something that just speaks volumes about somebody, or it's something that you know like I said might make you want to go left when they go right. um but yeah, words definitely matter to me. I think if everybody was a little bit more conscious about what they say, things would be a lot different. And I think, as powerful as they are and how they can transform a room or create a moment in like, a Jimmy V like fashion,
Yeah.
um, you know, some people need to realize, and we've seen this happen on the unfortunate end too, that like you can't always take back everything you say at the same time as well. So
Yeah.
I think that like, words matter. They're extremely, powerful, and it's inspiring to see how like, this speech or this song or this hook or this bar or whatever can just be so universally felt by
Yeah.
millions or even billions of people in the world at once.
It's a good answer. Um, so I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you, Carl LeGrett of Create Music Group,
Thank you.
for allowing me to interview you. And it's a beautiful space, man. I wish y'all could come and see this.
On the spaceship.
Yeah, for real, definitely look like a spaceship. So many bright lights. But yeah, thank you once again. And words matter,
Words matter. Thank you. Appreciate you big time.
of course.